70 years. That's how long we've been building artificial intelligence, and twice it has completely failed. The machine you typed into this morning isn't the first time the smartest people alive were certain a thinking machine had arrived. It's the third. And the first 2 times, the whole field didn't just stumble, it collapsed. Carry one thing into this with you. The second time it all fell apart, the machines were actually working. Doing real jobs, making real money for real companies. And that success is exactly what killed them. I'll show you why in a bit.
Hey everyone, Bella here, and here's who this really hits. Anyone who got told, just this year, that a genuine thinking machine is finally, definitely almost here. You have heard that exact promise before. You just weren't around for the first 2 times.
Look, last episode we watched a model turn pure static into a photograph, one pass at a time. Today we rewind all the way back to where that dream was born, 70 years before any of it actually worked.
This is Kim, and I want the dates on the table because the pattern only shows up once you line them up. 1950, a question. 1956, a name. And then, twice, a deep freeze.
I'm Leo, and can I just say it out loud? The trend says we're living inside the third boom right now, and I'd put real money on it, and almost nobody remembers the first 2. That's the whole reason this history is worth 20 minutes of your life.
Take the man who started it, 1950. A British mathematician named Alan Turing publishes a paper in a journal called Mind, and he does something clever. He refuses to even argue about whether a machine can think. Here's what he did instead. He turned it into a game. Put a person and a machine behind a wall. Let a judge type questions to both and read the answers. If the judge can't tell which one is the machine, then stop fighting about the word think. We call that the Turing test now.
Careful with that, though. Notice what he quietly gave up on. He stopped asking, is it really thinking, and started asking, can it fool a person? Those aren't the same question. And that swap comes back to bite everyone in every single boom after.
Before we go on, this is the question every beginner asks about AI, and here's the sharpest version of it. If AI is 70 years old, why does everyone act like it just appeared in 2023? Honestly, Erica, the answer is the whole rest of this video. Every generation is bone certain it invented the future.
Everything so far is just the setup. The next 10 minutes is where confident, brilliant people walk straight into a wall, twice. Each one swearing it would never happen to them. Coming up, a chatbot that fooled a whole room, 2 funding winters, and the machine that finally won.
Okay, I have to say it. I lined up every date for this one, page by page, and the confidence in 1956 is almost funny to read now. The whole plan fits on a napkin.
Run the tape back to 1955. 4 researchers, John McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Nathaniel Rochester, and Claude Shannon, sit down and write a funding proposal for a summer workshop the following year at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And in that proposal, for the first time anywhere, someone writes the phrase artificial intelligence. McCarthy coined it, partly just to give the meeting a name that wouldn't sound like anyone else's field. Before I give you their timeline, guess with me. How long did the smartest computer scientists alive think it would take to make a real dent in human-level intelligence? Bella, throw me a number.
Oh, given how hard it actually turned out to be? Decades, 50 years, hundreds of people, government-scale money. That's my honest guess. Wrong. And I mean me, wrong. 2 months, 10 people. Let me actually do that. 10 people times 2 months, that's 20 person months total. To build a thinking machine. 20. People have spent longer than that arguing over a spreadsheet.
And here are the receipts because I can't resist. The record's own words. A 2-month, 10-man study on the conjecture that every feature of intelligence can be so precisely described that a machine can simulate it. They thought one summer would move the needle hard.
So here's the ruling, and it's the pattern for this whole episode. Every generation of AI experts has looked at the finish line and sworn it was about a decade out. 1956 said one summer.
Can we just name that thing? The finish line that's always about a decade away and never actually gets closer. I'm calling it the finish line mirage, because it walks backward exactly as fast as you walk toward it.
Here's why they believed it, and it wasn't a foolish bet. Think of it like a recipe. You already trust that rules make a result. The recipe is the rules. The steps are the instructions. Follow them exactly, and a cake comes out every time, no genius required.
Okay, but push on that for me. If a cake is just rules on a card, then write me the recipe for recognizing your own grandmother's face across a crowded room. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. And you can't. That's the break in the analogy. Unlike a cake, nobody can list the rules for a face, or a joke, or common sense. You just know.
Right, so the plain version is this. Their whole bet was that intelligence is just a very long list of rules waiting to be written down. It's the entire assumption, one assumption. And it holds up for cakes, and it shatters on grandmothers.
And here's who this hits all these years later. Some of what they wrote on that napkin in 1956 still isn't solved. Not slow, not solved.
Okay, that actually changes how I read the whole summer. I want to say they were naive, but I read this room and the confidence in it didn't disappear. It just moved into the next brochure.
The studio chat just pushed up the exact question I was dodging, so here it is. If they got the timeline that wrong, was any of the summer of 1956 actually worth it?
You're right that they whiffed the timeline, badly, but flip it. That summer gave the field its name, its heroes, and its first real money. Being wrong about when isn't the same as being wrong about whether. So the real question isn't was it worth it? It's why did the money keep vanishing after?
Here's the whole 70 years on the board so you can see the shape. 1956, the name and the promise. 1966, the first program that fools people. 1973, the first freeze. The 1980s, a giant boom. The late 80s, a second freeze. And 1997, the comeback that changes everything.
Same shape, 4 times over. That's not a coincidence, that's a habit.
Look at the rhythm of that. Boom, wall, winter. Boom, wall, winter. It's the safest bet in this whole field. I mean, safest if you're betting on the shape, not the dates, because the dates surprise everyone. So the name was the easy part. The believing was the trap.
The trap that keeps its shape.
Real quick, because this next part matters to you. If any of this is helping, tap that like button, then hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Both are free and take about a second, but they tell the algorithm to show this to one more person who needs it.
Alright, different animal entirely. 10 years after that summer, one program quietly proves the scariest thing in this whole story. And it's not about the machine at all. It's about us.
1966. A computer scientist at MIT named Joseph Weissenbaum writes a program called ELIZA. Its most famous script pretends to be a therapist, the kind that mostly just repeats your feelings back at you as a question.
And here's what's under the hood, the record's own words. It's pattern matching. A few hundred lines. You type, "My boyfriend made me come here," and it finds the word boyfriend and flips it into, "Tell me more about your boyfriend." There's nothing behind it, no understanding, no memory, nothing.
What you're looking at is a faithful recreation of one of its conversations. It says, "Is something troubling you?" The person says, "Men are all alike." And it just fishes out a word and asks another question. That's the entire trick.
So did it work? Oh, it worked way too well. People sat down with a few hundred lines of code and started confessing. Weisenbaum's own secretary, who knew exactly how it worked, asked him to leave the room so she could talk to it in private. And the reason that lands so hard is that we're wired to see a mind wherever we see a... You know, it's the same reason people name their
cars. People name their cars, sure.
No, not cars, Bella. I lost it there. The same reason people talk to their houseplants and swear the plant listens. We hand out minds for free. Eliza just stood in the doorway and collected them. I'll catch myself in the act, actually. I've got a shelf of sci-fi paperbacks with cracked spines, and the talking machine you can confide in is in half of them. So when a real one shows up, part of my brain has already decided to believe it. That's the ELIZA effect, and I'm not immune.
But hold on, that makes it sound harmless, like a party trick, when actually the lesson Weizenbaum took from his own program is
That it was dangerous, not cute.
fine, you took the words out of my mouth, yes. He spent the rest of his life warning that if a hollow program could pull confessions out of people, then the danger was never the machine getting smart. It was people handing it trust it never earned.
File that one away because it comes back before this video ends. Weizenbaum called it the ELIZA effect, and here's the number I want you to keep. A few hundred lines of code. That's the whole thing that fooled a room full of grown adults. Remember a few hundred lines. We're going to hold it up against something much bigger later.
So here's who this actually protects if you carry one thing out of this scene. The easy part to fool has never been the computer. It's you. It's me. Be kind to yourself about that, and then stay a little skeptical of the machine that flatters you.
Which is exactly the mistake the whole field is about to make on an industrial scale, because a decade later they decide the fix is to just write down more rules and pour real money into
building machines that could do one narrow thing perfectly. And that's where both Winters live. So I'll finish Kim's sentence for her. They poured the money into rules, and the rules hit a wall. First freeze, 1973. The British government asks a mathematician named James Lighthill to review whether AI is delivering. His report is brutal. He says the field failed at its grandiose goals, and he names the reason combinatorial explosion.
And what does winter actually mean here in plain terms? Grants dry up, labs close. The word artificial intelligence gets so embarrassing that researchers rename their own work just to keep getting funded.
Combinatorial explosion just means the choices blow up faster than any computer can count. Think of it like a maze. 2 forks is easy. But every fork you add doubles the paths page by page until even a fast machine is staring at more routes than there are atoms.
Then comes the comeback, the 1980s. And this is the promise I made you up top. The machines start actually working. They're called expert systems. You sit real doctors and engineers down, and you write their knowledge out as thousands of if-then rules, and the thing gives useful answers. Now this next part gets argued about, so I don't want to run it off my memory alone. I want someone on the line who knows these winters cold. Yuki, you there?
Hold on, Erica. The framing everyone uses is that AI failed. That's the wrong word. The idea didn't fail. The timeline did. Every winter starts the same way, a promise written against hardware that doesn't exist yet.
Yuki, that's not what the record says though, at least not all of it. The expert systems did work. So if the idea was sound, tell me plainly why the money froze a second time.
Working narrowly and scaling are two different fights, and people lose the second one almost every time. An expert system nailed one job, changed the job even slightly, and someone had to handwrite hundreds of new rules. 9 times out of 10, that upkeep costs more than the machine saves.
And the pitch was always that you just keep bolting on more rules and it keeps getting smarter forever, which
is the brochure version. Ask anyone who ever maintained one.
fair, Kim, but the mechanism first, then you can hate it. Every new rule could break 3 old ones, and the record shows the upkeep is exactly what buried them. Want the whole life cycle? It's the same movie every time. A lab ships an expert system that diagnoses one kind of engine fault. It's a hit. Money floods in. They hire 100 people to write rules for every other fault, and every truck model and every weird edge case a mechanic ever saw. The rule pile gets so huge that fixing one rule breaks 3 others, costs balloon, the promises stop landing, and the whole specialized hardware industry that grew up around it, the LISP machines you're looking at, collapses when ordinary computers get cheap enough to do the same job. That's the second winter, start to finish.
And there's the payoff I promised you at the very start. The success is what killed them. The better an expert system got at one thing, the more expensive it was to keep alive, until cheaper computers just walked past it. That's the small version, by the way. Stack the next lesson on top and the stakes roughly double, so hold on, that part is coming up.
To borrow Leo's phrase, the finish line mirage strikes again. Stacking 10,000 handwritten rules and calling it intelligence is like ordering tteokbokki at a spice level that frightens the whole table and calling it a refined palate. Heat isn't depth. The volume of rules isn't understanding.
Right, and the thing that finally broke the whole approach has a name. It's the thing where you can't possibly write down every case, the
Brittleness. The word is brittleness.
brittleness. Thank you. Handwritten rules are rigid, reality isn't. The world always serves up the one case nobody wrote a rule for, and the system just breaks. Honestly, it's like me and the guitar. I've been learning exactly one song for 8 months. I'm flawless at that one song.
And that, weirdly, is expert systems in a sentence. Enormous effort, one narrow thing, perfect at it. The second the song changes, you're useless and the money notices. Make it real for me though. A hospital in 1988 buys one of these to help diagnose patients. What actually happens to that hospital when the second winter hits?
The vendor stops updating it, support gets expensive, and within a couple of years, it's a very costly paperweight nobody trusts.
So the hospital basically bought a genius that couldn't learn one new disease.
Exactly that, a frozen genius. And that word, learn, is the whole thing the next era gets right.
Pause this for 1 second and pull up any AI headline from this week. Go ahead, I'll wait. The trend says the big breakthrough is basically here. Read this week's headline for that promise, the finish line mirage. If you can hear that promise, you're hearing 1956 and 1985 talking.
2 winters, same mistake. Not too dumb, too early.
Too early, twice.
Okay, the comeback, 1997. And I'd put real money on this being the moment everyone misreads. After 2 winters, one machine walks onto a stage and does the thing that finally makes the whole world pay attention again.
Take the moment itself. May 1997, New York. An IBM supercomputer called Deep Blue plays a 6-game match against Garry Kasparov, the reigning world chess champion, widely called the best human player who ever lived, and Deep Blue wins. 3.5 to 2.5. The first time in history a computer beat a reigning world champion under normal tournament rules. The headlines the next morning basically said the machines had arrived.
The best human player who ever sat at a board. Beaten by a machine. Let that land for a second.
And the way it pulled that off wasn't genius, it was
Stop, Erica, that's my lane.
all yours, Leo.
It didn't understand chess. It didn't understand anything. It just counted faster than anything alive had ever counted.
Now here's the number everyone quotes, and I don't trust my own memory on an exact figure like this, so we checked it, look. Straight off the record, Deep Blue could evaluate about 200 million chess positions every single second. Let that roll for a second, because 200 million is a number the human brain can't really hold. Kasparov, at his absolute best, looks at maybe a few positions a second. Deep Blue looked at 200 million, same board. Wildly different way of getting there.
Wrong lesson though. That's not thinking. It's counting unbelievably fast.
Right, and here's the callback I've been waiting for. Remember Eliza, a few hundred lines of code that fooled a room? Deep Blue is the opposite machine, brute power and no fooling, and it still didn't understand chess the way you understand it. It searched. It didn't think.
That's the ruling, and it's the trap of 1997. A few hundred lines fooled us into seeing a mind. 200 million positions a second fooled us into seeing one too. Both times, we projected. The machine just played the game in front of it.
And there's a story here that's almost too perfect. In Game 1 of the match, Deep Blue made a move so strange that Kasparov, the greatest player alive, couldn't explain it.
Strange how though, Leo? Give me the shape of it.
Strange like no grandmaster would ever play it. And Kasparov became convinced a human must have stepped in because surely no machine plays with that kind of, I don't know, intention. Reports later suggested the move may have just been
A bug. A literal bug.
A glitch, exactly. A fallback it reached for when it ran low on time. The greatest player alive, spooked by a bug.
That's the exact same shape as Weizenbaum's secretary. The human insisted a mind was in the room because the behavior felt uncanny. Deep Blue rattles the champion with what might have been a bug, and Eliza collects confessions with a word flip. Same trick, opposite machine.
So here's who this whole 70 years finally hands the win to. Not the rule writers. Reach for it. This episode lives on layer 3 of the AI stack, the data. The quiet lesson underneath all of it's that intelligence-shaped behavior comes from learning off mountains of examples, not from a human writing the rules by hand.
And this is the thread I told you to file away back in the Eliza scene, now paid in full. The winners after 1997 stopped trying to bottle human rules by hand. They let the machine drink the data and find the patterns itself. That single move, out of rules and into data, is the seed of every AI you use today.
So does that mean Deep Blue was the real turning point, the moment AI finally worked?
Okay, 2 ways to answer that, and they land in different places. Turning point for the public, or turning point for the science? Which one do you mean?
The science. What actually changed under the hood?
Then no, Deep Blue was the loud goodbye to the old way, brute force rules taken to the absolute limit. The real turning point is the quiet one nobody put on a magazine cover, the researchers who walked away from rules and toward learning from data. That's the door into everything we cover next.
70 years to learn. Stop micromanaging the machine.
Yeah, and nobody sent a memo.
Here's the ruling on the whole era. 2 brilliant wrong turns, rules and brute force, and 1 quiet turn that actually worked.
200 million a second. And it still couldn't tell you why it moved.
So if you keep one picture from all 70 years, keep this. Artificial intelligence didn't arrive in a straight line. It arrived like a tide, big confident wave, long cold retreat, bigger wave, and every time the water pulled back, people swore it was gone for good.
Wave, retreat, wave.
And here's what that actually buys you. The next time a headline tells you the thinking machine is finally almost here, you won't just believe it or scoff at it. You'll ask the one question this whole history teaches, which is that a real breakthrough, or is it the finish line mirage again?
And next time, the part that breaks the pattern. Why, after 60 years of failure, 3 separate things quietly crossed at once around 2012 and turned all of this into the fastest adopted product the world has ever seen. That's part 2.
My favorite thing in this whole episode is still the secretary asking Weizenbaum to leave the room. 1966, a few hundred lines of code, and it already had us.
If you want the rest of the story, the comeback, the models, the whole machine, subscribe and stick with the series, because we're building it one piece at a time, and part 2 picks up right where this leaves off. A like genuinely helps this one find the people who think AI fell out of the sky in 2022. And here's the one thing only you can answer, so drop it below. Every AI generation swore theirs was the real one. So how do you tell this boom apart from the last 2? What would actually convince you it's different this time? Big thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. Professor Erica here. See you very soon.